what is flavor? Why do I taste the things that I taste? And it's profound. Every single person has these taste receptors on their tongues, and they associate differently based on who you are. So if your Sauvignon Blanc tastes like peaches and strawberries, and my Sauvignon Blanc tastes like grass and jalapenos, we might actually be drinking the same glass of wine, but we have an entirely different taste perception of it. So this book is empowering because it can help people discover their flavor of Sauvignon Blanc and the way they might experience that wine. It's all based on aromatic compounds, which you probably get asked this all the time, Natalie. If I'm smelling strawberry wine, does it mean it actually has strawberries in it?
Do you have a thirst to learn about wine? Do you love stories about wonderfully obsessive people, hauntingly beautiful places, and amusingly awkward social situations? Well, that's the blend here on the Unreserved Wine Talk podcast. I'm your host, Natalie McLean, and each week I share with you unfiltered conversations with celebrities in the wine world, as well as confessions from my own tipsy journey as I write my third book on this subject. I'm so glad you're here. Now pass me that bottle, please, and let's get started. Welcome to episode 58. I hope your 2020 is off to a great start. Now, just to share a little bit of personal stuff, the view from my office is a white winterland, a wide open field of snow, and then beyond that is the Ottawa River. I love watching people walk their dogs and ski and do other wintry activities as I enjoy the great indoors. That puffy LLB winter vest, yeah, that's still hanging in the closet with the sales tag on it. So let's warm up with some wine, shall we? In today's episode, I'm chatting with Madeline Puckette, who recently was named the Wine Communicator of the Year by the prestigious International Wine and Spirits Competition. Madeline's background in visual design, music, and restaurant hospitality have helped shape her communication of wine through infographics, entertainment, and social media. Her enigmatic, whimsical wine designs have been featured on NPR, Fast Company Design, and the Washington Post. I'll include links to her website, books, and social media handles in the show notes at nataliemclean.com/58. Now back to you. Why not make 2020 the year that you move from feeling overwhelmed with all the wines in the liquor store to feeling confident about every wine you buy and knowing exactly which dish to pair perfectly with it? I can help you with that. Sign up for my free online video wine class, The 5 Wine and Food Pairing Mistakes That Can Ruin Your Dinner and How to Fix Them Forever. Go to nataliemclean.com/class and choose a time and date that work for you. I look forward to seeing you inside the class. Okay, on with the show. Have you ever wondered how you can remember all of the wine regions of the world, wine grapes and so on? It's really hard to keep them all straight, isn't it? Now, we know that learning about wine certainly involves tasting wine. That's fundamental. But do you know how powerful the visual element of wine can be? Graphics, maps, infographics, and so on. Our guest is going to explain all about that because she is a master of this. You're in for a real treat. Our guest this evening is the author of a New York Times best-selling wine book. I've said it before, but do you know how difficult this is? I don't think it's been done before. A wine book on the New York Times best-selling list. Her site that she co-founded, winefolly.com, is one of the most popular, if not the most popular, on the internet for wine sites. She was named one of the top 40 under 40 by the Wine Enthusiast magazine. She joins me from her home in Seattle, Washington, just outside of Seattle. Hello, Madeline Puckette.
Hi, Natalie.
Oh, so glad you're here. So I have introduced you, but fill in the details for us. Tell us a little bit about your personal life as well.
Sure. Okay. So getting into creating Wine Folly, I was actually a sommelier at a restaurant, and prior to that, I actually wrote music. I studied music and art in college, and I always enjoyed wine. It was always considered something, you go to an art show, they always serve wine. Maybe it's out of a box, but you do your best. So I was always very passionate about tasting wine because it was always in the same procedure in which you enjoy and engross yourself in art and music. And I think at some point I realized there was no difference between all the three different topics. They were actually one and of the same. And that's when I really started exploring my sense of taste and smell through tasting wine. And that kind of brought me through curiosity into the world of wine. And through a matter of moves, ending up in Reno, Nevada, I started working in a wine bar. Then a friend of mine encouraged me to go for my certified sommelier with the Court of Masters. She's like, hey, if you actually want to do this for real, you might as well invest a little money into yourself in an education and a certificate. So I actually did really well with the courses and enjoyed it a great deal. Loved learning about wine. And when I was working, I sort of noticed this disconnect between my knowledge. It took a great deal of effort to learn about wine at that time. There was only one or two wine blogs that I knew of. And, books were a little opaque. So I started teaching myself through drawing pictures and that kind of a thing. And that eventually led to the creation of winefolly.com, which is this visual wine blog exploring sort of educational topics about wine. So we can learn how to taste wine, how to hold a wine glass, how to sniff wine, how to do all the different things of wine and why, what the reasoning is behind that. Because I think a lot of people don't understand how to experience taste. We just put something in our mouths and chew on it. We don't even smell it before we do that in a lot of cases. In a lot of ways, wine opened me up to this whole entire world of taste. And my entire goal with Wine Folly is to help everyone else open up their entire world to that experience because it can change your life.
That's awesome. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell us what the evolution was behind the book Wine Folly. Where did you get the idea? Where did it come from?
This is actually a little bit of a funny story
Okay.
because when we started Wine Folly, we had this big grand vision for it. And I started creating these infographics and they were doing really, really well. And we're like, well, we need to make a visual compendium on wine, obviously, because this is working. And shortly after one of these infographics, sort of at the time, you didn't have to pay to reach your subscribers on Facebook and that kind of thing. So this one post we put up of an infographic went viral. It was massive. And it went all the way to a publisher in England who contacted me and was like, hey, have you thought about doing a book? And this publisher is our publisher. And all I could think about was my grandmother picking up a book that her granddaughter made. And
Ah,
it's maybe a little bit selfishly, I wanted to make my grandmother proud of me.
I don't think that's selfish.
She's in my entire life, she's been the etiquette monster. The grandmother, everybody has to dress appropriately and sit properly at the table and not squirm. And I can't sit still. Like, it is the hardest thing. So I've always had what in my mind was a very strained relationship with her. And so this was like my opportunity. Oh, I can impress my grams. And so I went to my co-founder, who is actually my husband, Justin, and I said, hey, we should do this book. This is a great idea. He's like, I don't know. Let me research that. So he ended up reaching out to Seth Godin, who, if anyone's a marketing, if any of y'all, ladies and gents, are marketing fanatics, you probably know about Seth Godin.
He's big.
He did The Purple Cow, Small is the New Big. He wrote these amazing books. They have so much power and they help you communicate better. It's less about marketing as it is about communicating. So we reached out to him because he had some best-selling books and said, hey, what do you recommend? And he led us to our current agent who found us our current publisher, which is Penguin Books. And that's how we have so many different copies of the book. And we have 2 Chinese language editions of the book. So people are starting to explore, who are new to wine, starting to explore what is wine. And so this book has been actually, I'm very excited about its international reach because these are new audiences who are learning about wine. When I got into wine, it was very, very difficult. And it feels like a lot of an easier way, primarily because, maybe not in the Chinese edition where it's very hard to read. But in the US edition, or in the UK edition, in the English speaking edition, there are these really cool infographics. So if you want to learn about a grape variety, say it's Sauvignon Blanc,
Hmm.
and you can find the primary flavors of that grape, the taste profile, which you can expect for how acidic it will taste, if it has any tannins. Hot tip, it doesn't. And and then maybe common flavors that you'll find in this wine. And so what I did to determine all these types of things is I started scraping a lot of tasting notes and data from all a bunch of different sources, compiled them all together, started making word clouds, and then pulled out flavors which I associate with a Sauvignon Blanc. And then I got a group of other sommeliers together, and we pontificated on what Sauvignon Blanc should taste like and what it does taste like. And we came up with this list. And what I've been finding out after the book came out, because I started to ask that question again, what is flavor? Why do I taste the things that I taste? And it's profound. Every single person has these taste receptors on their tongues, and they associate differently based on who you are. So if your Sauvignon Blanc tastes like peaches and strawberries, and my Sauvignon Blanc tastes like grass and jalapenos, we might actually be drinking the same glass of wine, but we have an entirely different taste perception of it. So this book is empowering because it can help people discover their flavor of Sauvignon Blanc and the way they might experience that wine. It's all based on aromatic compounds, which you probably get asked this all the time, Natalie. If I'm smelling strawberry wine, does it mean it actually has strawberries in it?
Right, right. Absolutely. So answer that question just for someone who wants to know right now.
So here's the cool thing about strawberry flavors in wine.
Okay.
It's a mirror image of the strawberry compound that's made by the wine. It's a molecule made by the fermentation of wine. It's released through the ethanol. So when ethanol, alcohol, in wine evaporates in your glass, it carries these little aroma compounds and they fly into our nose, and our brains can't tell the difference. They see the same compound. It's a mirror image. So they see strawberry, even though it's not strawberry. And you could even say some of these compounds do look identical and they could be perceived as the exact same thing. So this is why I think perfumers, if you guys are into perfume and you like smells, you can really go deep. And wine is actually an amazing thing to go and smell because it puts all these weird aroma compounds that you wouldn't think would work well together. And suddenly you realize you smell a Carignan that smells like raspberries and hot dogs at the same time. And like part of you wants to hate it, but then the other part of you goes, actually, this smells quite delicious. And you taste it and it tastes quite delicious. So you completely change the way you think about taste and flavors. And you might be putting raspberry sauce in your hot dog next week and it might actually work. So I would encourage you to try that and tell me if I'm wrong.
Raspberries and strawberries. Yeah. Or sorry, hot dogs and strawberries. But you're right, because I've read lots of books. I'm fascinated with perfume and wine. So Patrick Susskind, the perfumer, and the book that sort of chronicled the creation of Hermès perfume versus Sarah Jessica Parker's perfume. There's so many parallels here. And I think it just points to the unexplored sense of smell that we have and that whole world that can come alive. But you put it very visually in a way we can understand. It's great. Okay. Your infographics and your posters are just so gorgeous. The color of wine prints. Do you have that handy? It's okay if you don't, Madeline.
I actually have one. The cool thing about the color of wine is it seems like such a banal thing to look at your glass of wine, like to look, it almost seems a little bit snooty to be staring at your glass of wine, like, oh, I'm getting a lot of ruby red colors in this. But the cool thing is there actually is, you can actually train your eyes and deduce a fair amount from looking at the color of wine. I talked with a few people. I actually talked with this obsessive sommelier in China who's really into color, and then Master Sommelier Jeff Kruth. And we started talking about color in wine and how the court analyzes it, how WSET analyzes it, so how the professional organizations analyze color. And I wanted to make a poster that worked for hey, if I'm a professional, it would work for me. But hey, if I just want to look at beautiful chart color with wine glasses in it, it would work for me too. So I came up with the outline, and actually, the color types are named based on the actual color that is associated. But you learn to communicate the color that way. And the cool thing is, for example, based on the chemistry of the way we see anthocyanin, which is the red pigment in wine, you can, if it's very acidic, if it's a very low pH, that color tends to go a little bit more red. They call it a red base. And I read a few scientific studies I thought was fascinating. And then when it goes a higher pH, aka a little lower acidity, it goes blue base and you have a more purpley wine. So if you've ever looked at Malbec at the edge of the rim, it looks sort of magenta. That's blue base. Huh. That's what we're talking about. And Malbec tends to have a higher pH, so it tends to have like 3.9, somewhere up there. It's a little bit higher. By the way, that's a little higher for red wines. So you can learn a little bit. You can actually deduce a little bit from looking at the color in wine. And so we wanted to give somebody a chart so they could start referencing it. And it was really cool because I was able to go to the printer while they were printing them and verify that the colors were correct.
Wow.
Which was a big deal, which is why I don't offer it as a printout online, because I feel like it's going to get ruined in translation somehow. You know, we got different colored printers everywhere.
That's fascinating. Anyway. Wow. It's so good that you're like this triple geek with the visual, the wine, the technical, everything.
Yeah.
You bring it all together, Madeline, but you make it so understandable. You obviously have a design background as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. I started going to school for music technology, which was basically a music composition, new media degree. So you understand a bit about music engineering and programming and the language of music, a little bit of the science and math of music, which is fun. It's a little hard. And then I realized that I would not get a job when I graduated in the music industry because I really wanted to be a rock star at the time.
I don't think there's any problem with that. And you are a rock star now in a different way, right?
It was kind of an unrealistic, let's be honest, that's very unrealistic. So I started a dual major. I went to the art department. I said, hey, I'm a real visual thinker. I think I can communicate some new ideas visually, and I want to get an art degree. And I have no idea how and why they let me in, but they let me into the art school too. So I created a dual major at California Institute of the Arts, and I got an art degree. And so when I actually got out of school, I could actually go get a job. And I worked for a Star Trek convention company, this convention company that did like Star Trek, horror movies, like the geekiest of geeky TV and sci-fi media. That was my job, was making like posters for like an amazing picture of Patrick Stewart in Star Trek: The Next Generation. And he's like, oh, I love Patrick Stewart. He's awesome.
You're adding the 4th star of geekdom to your criteria here.
That's right. So that was actually how I got my chops in design, was working at this firm. And I got really fast at designing because you got it. It's your job. So when it came time to creating something about wine, it seemed very easy to find visual communication methods to talk about wine. I was like constantly looking for ways to communicate wine visually because it's fun. Honestly, it's very fun. And that's what got me into creating maps. And so the book has, I think, 15 or 17, I don't know, a bunch of different maps. Here's a sample. Here's Spain.
They're beautifully illustrated. I mean, you've really taken care not only to be technically correct, but to be visually beautiful.
The color palette for them was very difficult to determine, but I wanted them to be, so if you had them all together out, that they looked the same, even though they were all different. And the funny thing you learn about wine is nothing is the same. There are no rules that translate across different countries. You're in France, you call it an AOC. You go to Italy, it's suddenly called a DOCG. And there's this funny thing called IGT. And you don't, like, it's very, very hard. If you go down the regulatory path, you basically turn into someone who just remembers numbers and is really good at like pattern recognizing. And that's not what wine is. No. Wine is what's in your glass, and it's this experience that you're smelling and tasting. That's why the visual thing worked, I think. I think that's why the site, honestly, because people just want to, I can see it. It's fun to taste and to drink. it should be fun to learn about.
Absolutely. What a good philosophy. Okay, so let's go to your worst moment of your wine career, Madeline.
You know, we get a fair amount of pushback on the site from people who obviously wine is a very deep topic and we do make some mistakes sometimes. And I do my best to correct things on the site if it's wrong. But there are a lot of open for interpretation language on the site. And it's almost on purpose because there are so many exceptions to the rule. So I think the worst moment, and this is in honest trueness, is, we've run our maps many times now. We have a map set that we sell online, and I have personally corrected them over and over again. So their latest edition is like perfect. And so we're in a constant move to be continually improving. But I think the worst moment really was when I lined up a podcast with Levy Dalton in New York. And I think he's awesome. He is like super hard personality wise. He like grinds right into the what the thing of it is with all of his guests. And I love that about him. Mm-hmm. And so I went to New York and we just met up and he's like, yeah, I'll interview. And I was like, so you ready now? And he's like, no, whenever you come back to New York. And I'm like, well, I'm not coming back for like a year. So the next year I'm in New York and I had just launched a Piemonte map, which you won't see for sale on our site right now because I still haven't figured out how to solve the problem. He took one look at it and he said, the size of Barolo is wrong.
Oh,
which
no.
is totally Levy Dalton, if you know him. Like
nice opener.
He is like very, very accurate. He actually didn't even do the podcast. He's like, I don't want to do this anymore because that is the wrong shape of Barolo. So I felt awful. Naturally, I'm going back and I'm like, God, I just traced. There are like something like 76 different little regions in Piemonte, and I traced. It was probably like a 45-hour project, if not more. Maybe more, it took me a while. And I'd really launched this map. We paid all this money, launched the map, put it out there, sold some, and he was not happy with the shape of it. And I was so embarrassed and mortified because Piemonte is one of those regions that you are the experts expert. Piemonte, it's like it's the creme de la creme. Italian wine, I have books upon books. I read all the time about Italian wine, but I feel like I don't really understand. I've talked to Italians about Italian wine. I feel like they don't understand it. Everyone is trying to figure out Italian wine. It is the most difficult puzzle to unravel. And he was able to quickly deduce that I was wrong. And I felt so embarrassed. I pulled the map from the site. Actually, you can still find it online, but it's not for sale anymore. And I changed it. I fixed the shape of Barolo, but I didn't relaunch it. I think that was my biggest. In my opinion, I had put all this effort into something, but I should have checked it with a few other experts before launching that sucker.
That's very honest of you. But there's just an ocean of facts, Madeline. And I raise my glass to you to attempt map drawing. I mean, cartography, on layering that on the world of wine. I mean, you're in the arena.
I got that map. It's on my to-do list when I'm feeling good and got a fair amount of caffeine in my body. I'm gonna tackle that again for sure.
I'm sure you will.
And we'll get it.
That's great. Now, tell us about your best moment so far in your wine career. We've gone low, now let's go high.
You could say that your best moment is when you sort of achieve some sort of, there's certainly been some awards that I've been like shocked and awed that we've received in the past. But honestly, if I really go down to what sticks with me, and I feel like this actually reflects with a lot of folks who get into the wine business, is there was a moment when I was a nobody and I went to a Chardonnay challenge, Ruinart. I was a first or second year doing the Chardonnay challenge in San Francisco. I drove in from Reno, Nevada, and I came in, with a mismatched suit and I did the tasting and I suggested wine and pairings with different Chardonnays and I guessed it. I didn't win, but I got runner up. The team at Ruinart was so impressed. They took myself and my husband, or I guess he's my boyfriend then, out to dinner. And I got to meet Frederic Panatois, who's the chef de cave there. He's the dude that actually makes the champagne. Mm-hmm. And he and his associate, Charlotte, said, I feel like you got something going. You should keep doing it. And that sticks with me. That, to me, was a high moment. For as low and as little of a person I was, it was someone who was very respectable in the wine community, gave me the opportunity to think big about myself and to maybe try to do that thing that I was thinking about trying to do. And I've been riding that high for many years. It's very rare that somebody in that kind of position will dawn and encourage you to try. Because it was so inspiring to me, I try to inspire everyone where I go as well, because there are so many new people to wine who are passionate about wine and they want to learn more and they have something, they've got a good idea. They just need to be told that, hey, that's a pretty good idea. You should try that. And I've heard amazing, amazing ideas and so much potential out of some of these folks that I've met, and they're going to kill it. I know they will.
Wow.
It feels like the wine business, you're only here because you're passionate. And so these people come in with a lot of passion, and it's exactly what we need.
I think you're exactly what we need, Madeline. You remind me, you talked about Seth Godin. I think you're on that track. Gary Vaynerchuk, as we all know and love, wine first, then guru. I think you've got that too. Like that track of like, not that we all need to grow out of wine, but
that was the one thing that bummed me about Gary Vee. We all love Gary Vee and we love those videos. Why did he leave us?
We want you back, Gary Vee.
Yeah.
I think wine is still in his blood.
For sure.
Really. I'll never forget the moment he made Conan, that late night host, eat dirt to kind of remember he was trying to explain what dirt might taste and smell like.
Wait, Conan O'Brien?
Conan O'Brien, yes.
Conan O'Brien would totally eat dirt, and I'm so glad that he did. That makes me like Conan O'Brien more.
He did. He got right into it, and he was actually trying to chaw on some stinky gym socks. Anyway.
Wow, I love it.
He's a sport.
That's awesome. That is awesome. There is a video on our site where because I always call it baby diaper and some French Chardonnay that's it smells very reductive.
Yeah, there's a picture of you.
Just so you know.
Oh, there it is.
Chardonnay does not smell like baby diaper. I still like to call it out because dirty baby diaper is probably one of the most, it changes you. I think moms out there, they all know what I'm talking about. I went over to my friend's place because I don't have children. And I was like, give me a freshie. Like, oh, do you sure you want that? Okay, we'll give you one then. So
all for the cause of research and being thorough.
That was awesome.
That's great. What is your favorite out of the box pairing, Madeline?
Ooh. Okay, this one I did not make up myself. I don't actually know if my buddy who told me this pairing did either. But if you get yourself a cava, like your $10 bottle of cava sparkling wine from Spain, and you pair it with a red bean chili, doesn't matter if it's got meat or no meat, but it's got to have the red bean aspect, cumin, that kind of a thing. And you get a little bit of cheese, cheddar on top, and a little bit of green onions with a cava. OMG. That is like, it's crack. On the surface, it doesn't make any sense that to have a spicy red bean chili with sparkling wine, like intensity wise, it feels like it would be a mismatch. But when you put them together, and I think you really need just a dusting of cheese. It could be cotija or cheddar cheese. I had cheddar. I always do the cheddar. And you get the creaminess in the cheese with the red bean. The red bean is sweet. It offers sweetness. And then with because cava is very dry. I always feel like cava is super, super dry. And you put them together and it makes this creamy richness. It's a savory, sweet flavor that happens in your mouth all at once. And then the carbonation turns into foamy, creamy in your mouth. So it's almost like having sour cream on your chili, even though it's not actually there. So that was a mind-bending. That's an odd pairing that I absolutely love.
That is fantastic and very creative, I must say. Wow.
So I didn't make it up. My friend, Rick Martinez, he was the guy who got me into the wine business back in Reno, Nevada. I worked at a place called West Street Wine Bar. I was very good at cleaning and polishing glasses because we did not have a dishwasher. He's the one who came up with that idea. And he's the guy who was like, hey, yeah, I'll give you a job. You know how to work a cash register?
That's awesome. Madeline, in all of your travels and experiences, is there an underrated wine or region that you'd like to recommend that we should learn about?
Oh, yeah. Oh man. There's so many. I guess, geez, where would I? So depends on your taste palette. I would say that's the first thing that matters. But that said, I am continually impressed by Spanish wines. Spanish and Portuguese wines, anything from the Iberian Peninsula, essentially. There's so much quality for value, for stupid value. I spent okay, $30 US dollars seems like a fair amount of money, right? That's fair. And what is that in Canadian, Natalie? Do you know?
About $1.
$30.
No. We're about 30 cents on the, or sorry, 70 cents on the dollar. So
Okay, so maybe so that's like 30% more 30. I can do math. That's like $40. All right.
mm-hmm.
40 Canadian. This was an old vine Garnacha from outside of Madrid, and the quality on this Garnacha, we think of Chateauneuf-du-Pape as being the place for Rhone blends, and truly the best, the most highest rated Rhone Chateauneuf-du-Papes are usually 90 to 100% Grenache. Nobody talks about that, but it's true. And this Garnacha from Vinos de Madrid, it was a 2008 vintage. I had it was maybe 2 years ago, something like that. I remember it to this day. It was so fantastic. It was such a fantastic wine. And for the price, it tasted like a $250 bottle of wine. And that's what, when you really get into wine, you are trying to find that perfect, can I afford it? Can I buy a case of it and put it in my cellar? And hopefully, if I was really smart and try not to drink it too fast, you really are always looking for it. It doesn't matter how much you make, you're always looking for a great buy and a great, great wine. So I would highly recommend checking out wines from the Iberian Peninsula. Expand your palate, try a bunch of things. There's a bunch of different grape varieties that we've all never heard of from there that are delicious. Another region, I always go for next door regions. So, for example, Napa is very popular and very expensive, but next door to Napa, you can find this area called Clear Lake. And it's just north of Napa. And there's an old volcano there. So it's got volcanic soils and it's high elevation. It's like 1,400 feet or higher, and phenomenal wines. In fact, a lot of Napa cabs get blended with fruit, because you can blend, I think, up to 25% from another region. I could be wrong. It might be 15. Somebody correct me. These wines are rich. They're just delicious, rich, full-bodied, beautiful red wines, and they're very affordable. So I'm all about next door.
Did you say clear water?
Clear Lake.
Clear Lake. Okay.
It's like an ancient lake, supposedly over 500 million years old. And I think it's 500 million years old. I think it's one of the oldest lakes. It's still a lake, and it's just very, very deep, and it's very big. And there's all these mountains around it. And it's kind of tragic. This whole region is very poor. So they sell their water to the Central Valley to water the agribusiness in the Central Valley, and the lake always gets drained. So I'm very thankful that this huge raining season happened in California this last year, because it filled up Clear Lake again, and it's not drained. It was really bad. Like, it was tragically low last year, and now it's full again. I hope they don't sell it again. Just like, please don't destroy this ancient lake. You guys are sucking it dry. That's a really special region. I wish they would get more press. Really delicious.
That's new to me too. Thank you, Madeline, for highlighting
that.
So you suggested some different wines. What I did is I followed your direction. You wanted to taste an aromatic white.
Ooh.
I've got some Viognier from Pays d'Oc, southern France. Is that a focus for your map?
We just have a France map.
Yeah.
But we do have a Viognier page in the book.
Okay.
So let's see if we can break my book or not. I think this is a great test.
Okay.
Does your Viognier taste like any of the flavors we get on the Viognier page?
All right.
So I've got my book ready. Okay. I'm taking a look. Natalie's giving it a sniffer sniff.
That's very Gary V of you.
I know. He's awesome.
I miss him too. Okay. Thinking floral notes.
Okay. Floral as in
white florals.
Honey?
Yeah, honey.
Okay.
Yes.
Honeysuckle?
I'm very suggestible. So if you just say something.
Do you get honeysuckle at all?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Okay. Wacky idea. Any rose notes? Okay, maybe not quite as rosy.
Yeah. Or the light florals like lilies, daisies.
This is a wacky one that I only get in some Viognier. Tangerine.
Hmm.
Do you get a tangerine
Tangerine,
aroma?
definitely. Tangerine blossom,
Really?
tangerine zest, that sort
Oh
of thing.
wow.
Yeah,
Oh,
for sure.
that sounds delicious. My mouth is watering. Okay, so do you get peach at all?
Yes, definitely
Really?
peach.
Oh
Yes,
my God, that's loading. That's just exciting. Okay,
it's very
do you
aromatic.
get an oiliness on the palate when you
Yes,
taste?
it's unctuous. I love saying that word, by the way. Unctuous.
Mhm.
It's
I like how
rich.
you say it too. I always say unctuous. I think unctuous sounds
I'm
way.
probably putting in extra syllables that shouldn't be
I
there.
like it. It's earned it, don't you think?
I think so. Unctuous.
Unctuous. So mango at all? Is there any mango, or is it fruity enough for a mango?
Yeah, this one is.
Okay. Does this dog have any oak on it?
No, I don't think
Okay.
so.
Yeah.
No,
Because
I'm
if
looking at
you
the back
did,
label.
you might get a little bit of nutmeg or mace.
Right, and I'm not getting any of that.
And no allspice, no brown butter, nothing like that.
Oh, it's really
Or vanilla.
pure fruit driven.
Okay.
Yeah. This one.
So we basically called out all the flavors on the top of this thing.
Yay.
We did tangerine, peach, mango, honeysuckle, and you didn't quite get rose, which I totally could see not getting. It only comes on a very super awesome, super awesome one. But then we're talking about some of the other flavors mentioned in here as well. So if you had maybe a glass of Viognier and it was your first time tasting it, you might be able to use the book and come up with flavors.
Absolutely. I think
Yeah,
that's brilliant. I love the
that's
way you
really
laid it
wacky.
out.
It totally worked. All right, so here's the cool thing. We were talking about, me and the guys in the Psalms, we're talking about when you taste a Viognier, some Viognier grows in a cooler area. Some Viognier grows in a very hot area. How do you tell the difference between a cooler or a hotter area? And that's based on sort of the primary fruit note that you get, and a warmer climate being more towards the sweet burnt mango, or sort of mango and pineapple kind of realm, and a cooler climate being more towards that tangerine, lime, apple, that realm of the flavor. So Viognier can be very different depending on where it grows, and that's sort of something we mention in this part of the book, where there's a sort of a cool climate versus hot climate.
So it's old world, but it's southern France, as you know, warmer
I
climate.
bet, is that a pretty good value up in
Oh yeah,
Canada?
it's $14, which would be like $2
Yeah.
American. No, it would be
No, 14,
8,
that's like
18, 8.
oh my
Sorry,
God. I've never had that one. That looks delicious.
looks good. But you're right, you nailed it. I love how you have all these visual sliding scales, and really, truly, you bring that visual element to wine that I think is sorely missing.
I have to admit, my fingers were like, please don't break the book.
Break the book. You mean by saying, no, I get black plums.
I'll be honest, like the next book we're working on is supposed to come out next fall if all the ducks are properly lined. And that will be basically an expanded version of the current book. So the current book's basically the great beginner guide, 55 varieties. And the next one's got over 100 more regions and more maps. And that's what I'm working on right now, 7 days a week for the last 10 months.
Wow, that's intense.
I admit, the last 2 weeks, I took the weekends off. My mother-in-law moved out and I cleaned the house, and I felt it was very therapeutic.
What, her moving out, or you cleaning the no, never mind.
Cleaning it. No, well, you can think what you want. She's amazing. She helps with Wine Folly a lot, so I love her forever for life for that. She helps keep me organized in a lot of ways, so much love goes her way, but I think both of us are happy now that she's happier since she's moved out.
So sweet. Madeline, this could be a 3-hour conversation, and I had so much else planned, but that's a tribute to your wonderful storytelling. You know, you have a real power of communicating and visualizing for people. So we're still going to wrap this up, and we'll have to have you back. But is there anything we've left out that we should cover? Bring it up and tell us what that is.
Remember, we were talking about aroma compounds like strawberry and the strawberry aroma? Well, there are, and sommeliers talk about this a lot, there are what some of these compounds we call impact compounds. We made that name up, but it essentially means, we didn't make it, the sommeliers did, not me. It essentially means a compound that I smell in a wine that typifies that something specific is happening. So when a blind taster smells a wine and can identify what it is, they're using impact compounds to do so. A great example of this, and let's give you an example. This one called, the full name of it is methoxypyrazine. It smells like green bell pepper. It can smell like chocolate, like a dark chocolate. It can smell like green peppercorn. It can smell like jalapeno, that kind of thing. This is methoxypyrazine. And it is a classic indicator of a Bordeaux variety. So Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Malbec, Sauvignon Blanc, they can all have methoxypyrazine. They tend to have a higher amount. And this is what I found out from Master Sommelier. He was talking to a plant pathologist, and apparently grape varieties produce their own anti-bug spray. And that is what methoxypyrazine is. It's the pine needle smell. It resists bugs. So when canopies get overactive and they produce a lot of green vegetation, they produce a lot of methoxypyrazine, which goes into the grape varieties and makes them taste herbaceous. So for a long time, we had really herbaceous Bordeaux style wines. And it wasn't until a little bit of science went through, we discovered that this was actually happening, and we're able to better control that now. And so green bell pepper in a red wine, which is most people don't like, although I think it's very awesome, can actually smell a little bit more like a dark chocolate, which is way more desirable aroma. So science is doing a lot to sort of understand how grapes grow and make them taste better. And so if you are getting into wine now, you are literally getting into it in the world's best time to get into wine. Because even on the low end, wine tastes better now than it's ever tasted before.
This is fantastic. Okay, so where can folks find you?
So if I were you can head over to winefolly.com and check out the site. If you love what we are doing, I would highly recommend subscribing. It's a free newsletter. There's some really cool sort of onboarding emails that can get you into exploring beginner topics or more advanced topics, depending on your level of expertise. And we have a lot of pros on there too, so everyone's welcome. So it's winefolly.com/subscribe. If you want to subscribe straight up, you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, like everywhere, just anything at Wine Folly is pretty much our handle. And tweet us. I check it all the time. It's going to be me or Vincent that sees it. So Vincent sits next to me during the work week. So we see everything together. And we're pretty easy to find. If you just type in Wine Folly, we'll be there. And I would absolutely love for you to subscribe. When you do, we send out a letter. And if you reply, it goes right to my inbox. So I see it.
I'm sure you will get subscribers, Madeline. Thank you for such a great conversation. Wish you all the luck with your next book. And we need to stay in touch. We need to have another conversation if you will come back and chat with us again.
Thank you, Natalie.
Okay. Bye. Goodbye for now. Well, there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this chat with Madeline Puckette. Here are my takeaways. Number 1, I love how Madeline makes the connection between music, art, and wine, and how she brings that special combination to a very visual way of understanding wine through her gorgeous graphics and designs. Number 2, she has a great way of explaining how grapes can mimic the molecular flavor compounds of other fruit, making wine such a profusion of aromas and flavors. Number 3, she also highlighted how profound our sense of smell affects the way wine tastes. And number 4, Madeline also shared some great tips on what the color of wine can tell us, even before we smell or taste it. You'll find links to her website, books, and social media handles, as well as the video version of this conversation, which you might like to check out as she is displaying her book and graphics, in the show notes at nataliemaclean.com/58. If you liked this episode, please tell a friend about it, especially one who's interested in the great tips Madeline shared. My podcast is easy to find, whether you search Google on its name, Unreserved Wine Talk, or on my name. Finally, if you want to learn why red wine shouldn't be your default pairing for many cheeses, join me in a free online video class at nataliemaclean.com/class. I can't wait to share more wine stories with you next week. thank you for taking the time to listen to this one. I hope something great is in your glass this week, perhaps a wine that you now know how to describe more visually. You don't want to miss one juicy episode of this podcast, especially the secret, full-bodied bonus episodes that I don't announce on social media. So, subscribe for free now at nataliemclean.com/subscribe. Meet me here next week. Cheers.